Right, we'll start the meeting. There is no fire alarm drill anticipated today. If the fire alarm sounds, please leave the building through the nearest fire exit by following the running man signs above the doors. Make your way to the rear of the car park. The organiser of the meeting, that's Wendy, will tell you when it's safe to return. Toilets available in the stairwell of the building. Water is available from the water cooler in reception. And finally, please make sure all phones are either muted or switched off. Good morning, I'm the Chair, Councillor Eileen Wragg, and welcome to this Planning Committee meeting on Tuesday, 4th of August, 2026. Sitting to my right is Vice Chair, Councillor Steve Hunt. The sporting officers present today are Wendy Ormsby, Development Manager, Damien Hunter, late arrival, Planning Solicitor, and Wendy Harris at the end there, Democratic Services Officer. This meeting today is being streamed live to the Council's YouTube account, so can I remind all members and officers contributed to the meeting to use a microphone or your comments will not be heard. We'll now start the meeting by doing a roll call of committee members and declaration of interest. Wendy.
Oh, sorry. Are we doing roll call?
Yeah, present.
So Councillor Wragg?
I didn't bring my hard copy with me. No declaration.
No. Thank you. Councillor Hunt?
Present and no declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Brian Bailey?
Present, Wendy, no declaration.
Thank you. Councillor Barlow?
Present, Wendy, no declarations that I'm aware of.
Thank you. Councillor Bloxham?
Present, Wendy, and no declarations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Colin Brown?
Present and no declarations. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Chapman?
Present, Wendy, no declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Bethany Collins?
Present, thank you, Wendy, and no declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Ollie Davey?
Present, Wendy, no declarations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gazzard?
Present and no declarations, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Heath?
Present, Wendy, and no declarations. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Howell?
Present and no declarations, Wendy.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes?
Present, no declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Levine?
Present, nothing interesting to declare. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask non-committee members if they have any declarations for this meeting?
Good morning. My declaration is in respect of the item re-Axminster. It's just to confirm that I'm the clerk of Axminster Town Council and the Devon County Councillor for Axminster. Thank you.
No declarations.
Sorry, Councillor Harewood, is there any particular declaration though? I mean, just the fact that you're the clerk, is that application, does it impact upon the town council in any way? Do they have an interest in it?
They've made comments, so they are a statutory consultee, but it's just for the point of clarity that I'm here speaking as the ward member today, not on behalf of the town council, despite being emblazoned in their uniform.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, any more declarations for non-committee members? No? Okay, thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Right. Thank you. Agenda item 1, registered speakers. The speakers for today's planning applications can be found on page 4 of the agenda. Item 2, minutes of the previous meeting, pages 5 to 12. Is it members' wish that I, as the chair, sign the minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of July and 10th of July as true and accurate records?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. Can I sign the minutes? Have you? Oh, so you have. Thank you, members. Thank you. Apologies, Wendy.
Yes, we have two apologies from Councillor Sarah Chamberlain and Councillor Simon Smith.
Thank you. Declaration of interest, we've already done those.
My apologies. May I also offer apologies from Councillor Sarah Jackson, who couldn't be here today? Thank you.
Thank you. Matters of urgency, there are none. Items to be dealt with after the public have been excluded, there are none. Item 7, planning appeals statistics, pages 13 to 33, update from Wendy Ormsby, Development Manager.
Good morning. So, for the most part, the summaries in the appeals report are self-explanatory. I think the appeal of note that has been recently determined is the land northeast of Parkfield Cottages, Pink House Corner at Lympstone, for the construction of the proposed educatoring facility. And that's reference 232627M full. I think the first thing I would just point out is in the remarks, it says it was officer recommendation to approve, committee refusal. It's actually officer recommendation to refuse and committee refusal. So I don't, there's a little bit of confusion in there. And that appeal was allowed. It was interesting reading through the decision because the inspector agreed with all of the matters on which the council had refused, in the fact that the inspector agreed that there would be an adverse, and quite a notable adverse landscape impact, that it wasn't in a sustainable location in terms of accessibility for workers, etc., and that there would be some harm to heritage assets. However, the inspector then gave significant weight to the economic benefits arising from the development. I think also acknowledging the fact that it was a business already established within East Devon and sort of took at face value their requirements, their land requirements, didn't attempt to consider whether or not the need for agricultural land adjacent the warehouse was necessary. He just accepted that's what they said they want, so that's what we're going to consider. And so on that basis, effectively weighing the balance, the inspector gave significant weight to the economic benefits, and as a consequence, the appeal was allowed. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy.
So this application is for the installation of a 4.5 kilowatt solar panel array comprising of 10 solar panels on the south aisle roof of the Grade 2 Star St Giles Church at Kilmington. So this shows, oh sorry, I'll just get my pointer out. Okay, so this shows the site here on the edge of Kilmington. This is the church here. And also notable is there's a car park up to the north of the church and Kilmington Primary School to the south. And sort of relevant to some of the comments in terms of how visible this aspect of the proposal will be, is that people regularly walk through the churchyard, because in fact I think people who are dropping kids off and parking at this car park are encouraged to walk through the church grounds rather than along the road. So it is a regular route through the churchyard itself. The site's also within an area which the neighbourhood plan identifies as a locally valued view. And also to the west lies the national landscape. This shows the actual application site here, which is the church in this area here. And notable is the vicarage, which is also in the same ownership as the churchyard. So the blue land indicates land owned by the applicant. This shows an excerpt from our electronic mapping. So you've got the grade 2 star church here, and then some grade 2 listed buildings shown in pink. And what this does show, dotted in or yellow here, is the boundary of the conservation area which the site lies within. This shows again the church and the churchyard, and this is the elevation on the church where it is proposed to site the solar panels. This is the existing roof plan and the proposed roof plan showing the siting of the solar panels. And this is the existing south elevation of the church and the proposed south elevation of the church. So here you've got 10 flush mounted PV panels. And the reason for this that has been put forward is it's part of a decarbonisation strategy that the owners of the church are bringing forward, which would also include some battery storage and an intention to replace the existing oil heating with electric, and is part of a proposal to secure the environmental and sustainable future use of the building, which is used for various community uses, not just as a place of worship. So that's the reason set out for the proposal. It is Historic England have updated their advice, and there is a greater flexibility towards the sort of acceptance of solar panels on listed buildings, recognising the need for things such as this church is proposing, ensuring long-term future viability of buildings and for, you know, those kind of sustainability issues. However, notwithstanding the guidance that Historic England have themselves issued on this, in this particular case, they are clear that they don't support this proposal. They're concerned about the prominence of the PV panels in views from the churchyard and the harm that they would cause to the architectural interest and aesthetic value of the church. This just shows in section how the panels would sit, so they are quite flush on the roof slope. And these are showing photographs. So this is taken from Whitford Road looking northeast to the church. Most of it's screened from view from this hedgerow. Then this is looking a closer view from Whitford Road. This is the porch area. So again, from this particular view, you would not see it. Then within the grounds, this is the roof slope where the panels would be sited, and this is a clearer view where the roof panels would be sited. And as I said, walking through the churchyard, as people regularly do, they will be very clearly visible. And there is a glimpse to view going from the entrance to Kilmington Primary School where you would see the panels as well. So, as I mentioned, the key issues here is balancing the understandable aims of the owners of the church to put in more sustainable and more affordable means of heating and lighting the church, hence the use of the PV panel. However, Historic England and our Conservation Officer have considered, recognised that this is going to create harm to the listed building. And one of the things that Historic England ask is that alternative proposals are explored. And Historic England take the view that the applicants haven't gone far enough in exploring alternative proposals. For example, we did notice when we were looking at the slides at the fact that the vicarage is in the same ownership as the church. And there's been no detailed justification, for example, why the panels couldn't be put either on the roof or within the grounds of the vicarage to serve the church, which would be far less harmful than putting them on to the church itself. So the conclusion of Historic England and our Conservation Officer is that there would be moderate harm to the significance of the Grade 2 star listed building, and that's important to recognise that this is not, the Grade 2 star are a very small proportion of our listed buildings, and there will be visual impact at a close range from public viewpoints, and alternatives have not been fully explored. So for this reason, this is recommended for refusal for the reasons set out on the slide before you. Thank you.
Right, call the applicant now, Anna Crabb. Thank you. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Anna Crabb, and as licensed lay minister and member of St Giles PCC, I'm speaking on behalf of the Church. We are the people who carry responsibility for St Giles. The papers before you show that this decision about granting planning permission is finely balanced. It hinges on whether the public benefits of the scheme outweigh the degree of harm. Importantly, Historic England does not object to the proposal, but has concerns. The concerns are principally about insufficient evidence that alternative options have been explored. I have 3 points to assist the committee. First, the alternatives have been explored, would not be viable. Secondly, there are weaknesses in the reasons for refusal. Thirdly, more weight should be given to public benefits. The alternatives first, raised by Historic England. The churchyard has been considered and consulted on. It's not viable because this is consecrated grounds and has raised clerical objections and would be inappropriate. The vicarage is not an option because Exeter Diocese have arranged to install solar panels for the home of the new incumbent. Secondly, the weaknesses in the reasons for refusal. The Conservation Officer and Historic England say there would be harm to the appearance and character on the south side of the building. However, Historic England notes, quote, regrettably, the materiality, appearance and quality of the concrete tiles on the south aisle roof does not add positively to the significance of the building. This is precisely the location where the solar panels would be placed. They will cover the most regrettable aspect of the architecture of the church. This significantly weakens the claim about harm. There are statements confirming that the development has been assessed against the provisions of the Human Rights Act and the Equality Act. The available papers do not provide evidence of these appraisals. The first protocol of the Human Rights Act guarantees a right to peaceful enjoyment of property, including legitimate use expectations. The Equality Act requires consideration to be given to the interest of those with protected characteristics, such as age and disability, which should be relevant to churchgoers. The reasons for this application are to enable us to enjoy, maintain and enhance the legitimate use of our building and to ensure the future provision of the energy needs of our church and therefore the welfare of its members. Third, the public benefits. We have a duty to care for this church and its future. We know the importance of St Giles to Kilmington. Caring for an historic church means facing practical realities. The proposed panels are a first phase of a transition to electric heating. The savings from the scheme will support the maintenance of St Giles. The educational benefits are more significant than the papers indicate. The planned display for the primary school specifically demonstrates how an important historical building can respond sensitively to the climate change. We need your help and support by approving this application to keep St Giles cared for and sustainable.
Can
Thank
I
you.
ask you to wind up now, please? Thank you. Kilmington Parish Council, Councillor Peter Ball, please. You have 3 minutes, Mr. Ball.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to present the views of our residents and councillors. Our monthly Village magazine, website and Facebook page keep the village well informed. In 2019, when Devon County and East Devon declared climate emergencies, we published your educational publicity encouraging parishes to take action. Kilmington signed and endorsed the Devon County Climate Declaration. Residents funded PV panels on our village hall and contributed to the East Devon Tree, Hedge and Woodland Strategy consultation. At your request, we now have an active group of tree champions trying to boost the green canopy cover. Hence, when residents saw the proposed plans to install PV panels on the church roof to further reduce carbon and to help meet the high electricity costs, there was no outcry condemning the idea or the chosen roof location. In fact, many put their hands in their own pockets to pay for the installation. So Kilmington residents do respond. Now, we know St Giles's Church well. We pass it frequently each week, some several times a day. A significant number were christened at its font, married at its altar, and will be buried or have their ashes scattered in the churchyard. A calendar of community events are held and there's a solid congregation with pews full for key celebrations. For the overwhelming majority of villagers over hundreds of years, St Giles has held a special place in our hearts. Keeping it viable is a must. Knowing the building well and recognising that the lower south roof is the least visible area. The church doorway you saw actually is rarely used there, and the entrance is on the other side of the building to the north. Therefore, covering those 1960s red concrete tiles with black panels was clearly the least harmful option. And please do not assume that Kilmington brushes aside heritage. The village has one of Devon's most active village heritage groups. Residents have created a digital archive of several thousand historic deeds, documents and photographs. The research group publishes monthly articles in our magazine, and regular village history presentations are usually sold out. So, we appreciate your concern and we thank you for carefully assessing any potential harm to St Giles's Church. But to let you know what residents feel, as we live in a sort of a democracy, we want you to know that the Kilmington community view is that the PV installation's benefits significantly outweigh the limited and less substantial harm to the church where we live every day. Therefore, some believe that refusing permission would undermine our efforts to secure the long-term viability of St Giles's Church and would be inconsistent with your climate emergency call for action. We respectfully request that your planning judgment will grant us planning permission. Thank you.
Right. Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, councillors. I'm full support of the Kilmington solar panels for renewable energy. I'm pretty sure that the church, unlike our houses, pay a business energy supply, which is a lot higher than domestic. Therefore, these panels would be the way forward. Also, as has been mentioned, the climate change mitigation, the installation would reduce the church's operational carbon emissions. It's sustaining a heritage asset, reducing the long-term energy costs, so improving the financial sustainability of the church. It's a limited scale of development. It's not like a new development. It's just a small array of 10 panels, which, as has been mentioned, they're quite low impact. The use of the existing roof slope is ideal, and it's in a hidden place, let's say, rather than where you tried to make it look like it's unhidden. The other thing is, in the past, we've had television aerials, we've had satellite dishes, not saying they've been fitted to a church, but solar panels are the current thing to have. What will go on in the future, we don't know, and these are just a temporary structure which can be removed in the future. They've been designed sensitively. There's no material impact on any neighbouring amenity, and the proposal is unlikely to generate any noise or anything extra traffic or whatever. I've received no public objections from any of the other people in Kilmington, as has been mentioned by the parish chairman. So in summing up, the public benefits outweigh the limited harm. The proposal results only in less than substantial harm. So I think that for the heritage of the church and the thing that it does with the community will outweigh any harm from visual impact. So I sum up there and fully support this application. Thank you.
I have a question as to something that was said earlier by Mrs. Ormsby as to why the solar panels were not, the application wasn't for the solar panels to go on the vicarage itself. Perhaps Anna Crabb could answer that, or Councillor Peter Ball?
This is part of a complete programme for the church and the buildings owned. And in fact, although it wasn't, and we're at fault, I guess, from that point of view, it wasn't described well in the responses, the vicarage will have panels fitted to it soon.
Yeah.
That's part of the whole programme.
Right, thank you for that clarification. Yeah. Any more questions, members? Yes, Councillor Barlow.
Just a quick one to Wendy. The last photo you put up of the view from the school, can you just confirm that actually that's not going to be visible from that photo? The solar panels, because you're showing a part of the roof. You said it was going to be visible, but I just want to confirm that isn't going to be visible from that part of the roof. If you look at the roof line of the ridge line of the church there and go down, actually, if you look at then the plans, there isn't any solar panels due to go on that part of the roof.
That's correct. That's the end of that's the kind of the step down bit of roof.
So they wouldn't be visible from there either?
No, you're correct,
thank you.
they won't be.
Okay. Any more questions? Yes, Councillor Howe.
I suppose it's the applicant in particular. Did you at any point consider solar tiles instead of solar panels? Because, well, that part of the debate to come on, to me, is they would actually mitigate the harm in the 60s as well.
Yes, as far as I know, the planning consultant did have a discussion with Harish, isn't it, the Historic England, about that, and said that that could be done if he felt that would be a better option. But
Okay. Any more questions, members? Right, into debate then. Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Chair. I can accept that this is a slightly incongruous and modern addition to a historic building, but I do feel historic buildings have always evolved and they've always been modified, they've always adapted to changing conditions. We've already heard there are concrete tiles installed in the 1960s. Part of me thinks, how on earth did they get away with that? If they were applying for them now, I suspect we would probably rightly turn them down. on the outside of a church, I expect to see lightning conductors, security lighting, all kinds of modern paraphernalia. Inside, I'm going to see heating vents or heaters, microphones and speakers, electric lighting, and I don't feel any of that is incongruous when I go inside. And I just feel it's time historic buildings were enabled to move with the times. There are certain things on a historic building like that I would feel were a step too far, but I feel this is a very modest addition to a historic building that's going to enable it to proceed into the future, and I feel that we should be supporting that. And as has been pointed out, Devon County Council has made a climate declaration, we've made a climate declaration, and I think that maybe our times that we say it's about time we started sticking up for that. And I feel in terms of the community, this is a kind of essential move to help to make this more viable. We all know what's happened to electricity prices over the last few years, and I feel this is definitely outweighed. I accept there's some harm, but I feel it's outweighed by the benefits.
Thank you. Councillor Barlow.
Thank you, Chair. I totally agree with Councillor Davey. If you look back at the history of this church, 10th century when it was first formed, first records, 15th century, then we got the tower, the 1862, totally rebuilt by the Victorians, and then in 1960s, the porch added and the tiles. At the end of the day, part of Historic England records all these steps as we go along. And by putting these on, you are guaranteeing or helping to guarantee the future of this building. We've got another one coming up in a minute, which we will get to. But you know, things move on. And if they don't move on, then you sometimes lose what you hold precious. And certainly with, as it's been mentioned, the climate emergency, what is the point of having an emergency if actually you don't do an awful lot about it, you just do the bits that are nice and leave the bits that actually might change things. And it makes me laugh, whenever we build these in the countryside, there is a big thing that everyone moans about the countryside being lost. However, they then turn around, our planning officers, and say, but don't worry, they're not permanent, because they'll go in a little while and then we'll go back to it. And this is exactly the same. It's not like you're taking the roof off the church or you're taking the tower away or something like that. This is something that's on there. And as was pointed out by Councillor Chubb, who knows what will come in the future? It might be something new, something different. And electricity might become free, in which case they'll take it off and the tiles will be back as they were, the concrete tiles. So again, with the emergency we've declared, I do think we need to take it seriously. And I, for one, will not be supporting refusal. I will support approval of this because I believe, again, that the benefits to the community, and again, especially in a village like this, you can't see it from anywhere. The only people that really are going to see it are the people that use that church, the local community. And if they're for it, why aren't we supporting it? Thank you.
What a wonderful world, free electricity. Councillor Howe.
Thank you, Chair. How can you go against the two that have just been before? But I will put a word of caution in here. It's not against the principle, I get the principle, but we need to be sure with a Grade 2 star listed building, everything possible is done to prevent or enhance the building, but to prevent harm, etc., before we can move on. And that's the fundamental. Even the applicant said they hadn't looked at solar tiles. So the principle on solar tiles is, guess what? You remove the concrete, horrible slates that are there, you replace them with wonderful looking, slates that should match the ones above and generate the power. I'm certainly not going to go for a refusal on this. I would respectfully ask everybody to defer this to allow the church to go away and price up to make sure it's viable. That's the question. We haven't had the answer as to whether the best technology for this church that will enhance the whole church and deliver the energy efficiency it needs is viable and practical in the future. So I would ask we defer this for them to be able to go away and prove their case absolute. And that's all I would ask them to do. And that, then, we're protecting the security, we're protecting its long-term length, and we're enhancing the building as a whole, not making it, well, we'll just plonk a bit on just to make it viable for the near future. So that's what I will be pushing for. Thank you.
I get a sense of déjà vu here. Wait a minute, can I just ask the applicant whether you would reconsider tiles? Is it? Instead of...
Yes, we would reconsider. Just a comment though, this is a small section of that 1960s roof, so you're going to have that lower roof, which you could see from the school, different, and the other roof different, just visually. Well, obviously it's going to be visually anyhow, but yeah.
Thank you. Could I ask Mrs. Ormsby whether tiles, in her view, would be acceptable? We don't have the conservation officer here.
Generally, in principle, solar tiles are a better option than on a listed building than solar panels. What I'm concerned about here, though, is we obviously have an application before us for solar panels. If the scheme was to involve solar tiles, it would be a different scheme altogether. And so effectively, this application would be either it would need to be withdrawn or determined in one way, and a new application submitted, because we would be moving to quite a different proposal. And again, what I don't know, and it's hard to know, is whether the idea would be the entire roof would be retiled, or whether a section of the roof would be retiled, and ultimately, you know, whether it's going to look materially better than what is currently proposed. So it is the principle of it, yes, it would be good to explore it, but I think in the context of what we've got today, it might help members make a decision on this application if they know whether solar tiles are a viable alternative, to then come back and determine this one, whether this application is refused or allowed, with the context of a future application coming forward. But I don't think it would be the idea to defer this, to change this application to something different from what it is at the moment.
That was very clear advice. Councillor Brown, then Councillor Barlow and Councillor Heath.
Thank you. Allowing solar panels on this Grade 2 style listed church will help reduce the severe energy bills and will help secure the survival of this historic community building while supporting net zero. This would also assist the Church of England with its aim to be net zero by 2030. Lower bills, higher electricity costs threaten the day-to-day operations of this place of worship. The panels would assist in providing financial security of the church and helping to safeguard the use of the building for the foreseeable future. With this ongoing active use, saving it from neglect, which has happened to St Michael's Church in Honiton, which is there just leaving, you know, going to waste, unfortunately. Generating clean electricity cuts reliance on expensive social grid prices, and therefore at the present time I support this application.
Thank you. Councillor Barlow.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to point out on solar tiles, they are wonderful. They don't look as good as normal tiles. Even the very newest ones, and of course, when you're talking about they are hugely expensive compared to panels. They're also more damaging. You are changing the whole thing then. You know, we talk about this of putting panels on that are not permanent. They can be removed easily in the future. You can't easily remove solar tiles, and the cost of fitting them would be exorbitant. And then the whole thing of trying to save the church and save money, and obviously electricity, it's not all about money, and the planet, and the cost of doing that is just immense. So it's not really, and as you say, we are looking at what's in front of us now, but I can't see that will ever be realistic. Thank you.
Councillor Heath.
Thank you, Chair. Well, as elaborated on by some of my fellow councillors, solar panels can be removed. I'm inclined to support this because local people and councillors support this application. It's not going to be particularly overlooked other than by locals, and as long as they're happy with this, and it's in the most unobtrusive position that it can be on the church, then I see no reason why not to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else, please? Councillor Levine.
Thank you, Chair. I really wanted to say it's a village church. It's not some architectural jewel in the middle of somewhere. The people who visit it are the villagers. If they agree, if they are happy with what it's going to look like, why are we standing in their way? I just can't see any good reason for refusing this application, so I can't support it. Sorry.
Thank you. Anybody else? Right, Councillor Howe.
Just to come back to Councillor Barlow's point, that's all I'm asking, is them to go away, research it, come back with that fait accompli one way and another. To me, it makes no harm. And that's the fundamental. None of us are arguing against the use of solar panels one way and another, solar energy on this church. We just need to ensure the Grade 2 star listed building, Yehudi, is protected to everywhere. And I'm sure the locals are doing that, but we need that paper trail proof, to be honest. And as for backing the residents, absolutely, I get that. But we've all, well, some of us have been here when Budley Salterton had an application before us quite a while ago, where the town council and all the ward members were in support. And ever since then, we've got grief because of the nice black box on Budley Seafront that was approved because the town council and the local ward members all wanted it.
Yeah.
And we've taken grief for it since.
Yeah.
So we have to be distant, but realistic at the same time. And I hope the local residents accept that in verifying the best is done for them and everyone else for the future. So all I'm asking for is a deferral for them to come away with that final proof to say yes or no. It's as simple as that. Thank you.
Thank you. We've had very clear advice from the development manager that we have to deal with this application before us. So if we refuse this, they can come back, have another go, and then we can judge that application. So that's Councillor Barlow.
I think what Councillor Howe is saying, that at the end of the day, he doesn't want to defer the, doesn't want to refuse, he wants to defer it so that they can come back to us and say, no, it can't be done. And therefore, we are in a better position then to say, yes, you can have it, because we have covered our backsides with every alternative. That's my understanding of what...
So really, you're disregarding the advice of your planning officer?
No, not at all.
Yes,
No.
Well, you are actually, because we have to judge this application that's before us. I won't have an argument, Councillor Barlow. Councillor Davey.
I've already said I'm happy with the application as it stands. I think the proposal for solar tiles is interesting, and it could be that they could explore that and come back and say, actually, we've had a look at this. We think that we'd like to modify the accepted plans, and they could come back for a variation of the permission. I assume they could do that. If they decided to go down the route of solar tiles instead of panels. But I think solar tiles, you're either going to do part of the roof, in which case it's going to look equally incongruous, or you're going to do the entire roof, which I suspect would be massively expensive and would generate so much electricity you'd need far greater transformers and so on, all the other stuff you have to have with it. I am happy to propose that we accept this application as it stands. And
Right,
I'm
is there a
prepared
seconder,
to
please?
propose that.
Lots of seconders. Councillor Brown. Did you want to add anything? Well, you said everything. You had it all written down. Thank you. Right, then we move to vote. Damien, do you want to?
Just give some clarity on the
Yeah, yeah,
Reasons.
We need reasons, Chair.
yeah. We do need
Always.
reasons.
As my training will say after this meeting, in great detail.
So just before we come on to reasons, I just wanted to clarify, there was a bit of debate about interpreting what I'd said about the Council House proposal for a deferment. In terms of if members, one of the reasons, or actually one of the main reasons for this being recommended for refusal is that officers aren't satisfied that all possible alternative options that could be less harmful have been fully explored. So my advice, following the comments from Councillor Howe, was members could, if they wanted to, defer this application for an assessment of whether or not solar tiles are a viable alternative, and also to explore in more detail what they might actually look like. Then we would come back to revisiting this same application to then decide whether to proceed with the refusal on the grounds that there is a viable alternative, or approval on the basis that that members are now confident that there are no other alternatives. So that would be if members were to defer, that would be the reason. It isn't to change the scheme, it's just to explore a little bit more into one of the main reasons that are influencing the recommendation for refusal. So that's just giving a little bit of clarity on what the officer advice is on that option. Obviously, we have a proposal on the table now for approval based on the scheme as it currently stands. And as Mr. Hunter has pointed out, we therefore just need reasons as to why the recommendation for approval has come forward.
Question to
Yeah,
Officer
Councillor Barlow.
Just a question then. So should it come back that they have looked at the tiles on the roof, come back for the same thing, would officers then recommend approval?
It is a sort of possibility, yes. If we were satisfied that everything else had been explored and this was the only option, yeah, then in which case it wouldn't actually need to come back to committee.
And what proposals would you put forward for if should it come back and you were accepting it? What would you propose with the reasons for accepting it?
Until I know what the proposal is, I can't actually say.
So, is there an amendment? No amendment. Councillor Heath.
I'm just looking at something here on Google, which appears to be quite reasonable. Standard solar panels are significantly cheaper up front than solar roof tiles, costing roughly half the price for a comparable energy output. Thanks.
Right, Councillor Barlow.
I'd like to make an amendment to it that we do defer this. And I know it will be annoying to the people at the back of the room there, but it is doing it the right way. Grade 2 star listing is really, really important. There are very few of them in the country. And we need to be very clear that this is the right thing. You need to be very clear. It will take, I know, another week or two to come through. It shouldn't have to come back to committee then if officers are then willing to do it. So I think it will be better for you and better for us. It will certainly be better for Historic England. And I know it will be annoying, and I apologise for that. And it may get no seconder to it anyway, but there you go. That's my amendment.
Councillor Davey, would you be happy to withdraw your proposal?
No.
Sorry?
I feel that I am happy with the application as it stands. I know this is a grade 2 star building and I do not lightly take those decisions, but I feel it is time that we enabled historic buildings to move with the times and deal with a new world. So I don't see, I feel that we have heard that they have looked at some of the alternatives, but it seems to me a ground-mounted array, there may be a space to do that, there may not. But you'd have to run a cable through consecrated ground, which I can imagine could be enormously difficult. So I am happy just to put solar panels on a church.
Thank you.
And in terms of reasons, I feel that there is a degree of harm to a historic building, but I feel that the public benefits and the continued viability of the use of the building outweigh that.
Thank you. First of all, can I take a seconder for the amendment, please? Councillor Howe? Councillor Howe, do you wish to speak?
Yes, please, Chair, because I'm quite astounded at Councillor Davies' statements there, particularly after having been chair of this committee and knowing what the evidence we need, and he's provided none. You know, and we're not talking about a ground-mounted solar array, we're talking about solar tiles on the building, and we're asking for proof of it. The explanation is quite simple. We have to, with grade 2 star, in fact, any listed building, try to enhance the building and look after it. It's not about anything else, it's about making sure the best is done. If it can't be done, and to be honest, I've got doubts it can be, but nevertheless, if it can't be done, this application still sits there to be approved. But we need that evidence, and anyone that doesn't think we need that evidence really needs to go and read the MPPF and everything else at present, because it's quite clear. Thank you.
Thank you. So we take the amendment. I'll take the vote now. The amendment, please. All those in favour of the amendment to defer?
Chair, let's just bear with us one moment, right?
Yeah, okay.
So we've got the amendment that's been put forward, and that is a proposal to defer to allow the applicant to come back with some suggested, or to let you know whether or not they believe that they can pursue tiles rather than the panels. It's not to amend the actual application, because that wouldn't be possible. So all you're doing basically is just waiting, then coming back with a decision, or they're coming back with a comment on whether or not they can put forward an alternative scheme. Surely is it not just best, as Mrs. Ormsby said, deal with this scheme?
Yeah.
If you're happy with it, approve it if you've got reasons. If you're unhappy, refuse it in line with the officer recommendation. There is absolutely nothing to stop the applicant coming back with a new proposal and new application in relation to tiles. It's a completely different application, isn't it? Am I right in thinking this, Ms. Ormsby? You know, we can't amend it in the way that they're proposing, so I can't really see what is the benefit in just letting them go away and come back, and they may say, okay, then we've looked into this, actually, we can't get tiles, so what we're going to do then, the only option you've got is this one here for the panels. But say, for instance, they come back and say, oh, we can get some tiles. All we'll be saying is we'll still have to refuse this potentially, because we then don't have another application. They still need to come in with a separate application. So whatever happens with your proposal, they will always have to come in with a separate application. So I can't see the point of it, to be honest.
Can I correct our solicitor for the first time ever?
No.
It's quite simple. If this application is decided today and refused, it's not going to be, but let's say it was, the applicant would have to come back with another application. All we're asking for is what English Heritage are asking for and our conservation are asking for, is the final bit of evidence. So that's what we want. We want the evidence, if it's viable or not. If it's viable, then yes, this has got to fail. If it's not viable, then this one can be determined very quickly. It makes it quicker for the applicant, it makes it cheaper for the applicant, and is the correct way of doing things, Chair, and not messing it up for the applicant or anyone else in delaying process and making more work for our planning officers. It is a simple choice. Provide the evidence. If the evidence doesn't work, this gets approved. If the evidence does work, then yes, we've got a decision to make. But at present, it's quite simple.
I think it's simple too, in that we either approve this or we refuse it. they can then come back with a fresh application. That's so?
Could I hear from Mrs Ormsby again, please?
So just, well, 2 points, just procedurally, because I think we were just about to go to vote on the amendment, but my understanding is that the first proposal came from Councillor Davey. And therefore, which was seconded by Councillor Brown. So that's the proposal on the table at the moment.
Yeah, but then we had the amendment, and then we take the amendment first. That's the procedure. We take the amendment first, and then if that falls, we go to the proposal. That's
Chair,
the procedure.
again, so before we do it, I mean, it works at different authorities in different ways, to be quite honest. Some authorities deal with the first main proposal first, and if that fails, then they'll move on to the amendment. Other ones, if it says that it's an amendment, they'll deal with the amendment first and then revert back to the original proposal. I was just speaking to Ms Harris then with regards to how we deal with it here, because it's been so long actually since we've done it with an amendment actually. And I don't think there's any set rule as to how we've done it in the past. Am I right in thinking?
It's always been the case. I think you'll agree with this, Councillor Howe.
Yeah, I mean,
the amendment is taken first, and then the proposal.
No, I mean either way, because then if the amendment is successful, then the
Proposal
committee
falls.
are obviously happy that that's the one that
Yeah.
they've gone with instead of the original proposal.
Yeah.
And then if it fails, we go back to the original
Yeah.
proposal. I've not really got to worry about any of that procedurally. What I do want to hear from is Mrs Ormsby's comments on whether or not she thinks it's actually worthwhile going with this amendment and deferring, and whether that
She has
will,
already said that it
she
could
thinks
be.
that
Yeah,
could
yeah.
be worthwhile
She
for
has-
officers and save
I think
time and save
she-
the applicant
she-
money.
She won't say for definite that the
I know she
officers
can't
would
say
agree
whether
with
it will be
Giles,
whether it will be acceptable
but
what they put
she's
forward.
indicated that it's a viable option.
Are you happy with that?
Yes, I mean, it is something that could happen, but as I said, we will still be coming back to determine this application, either at committee or under the delegated powers. It would just be exploring that issue of, are there any other viable alternatives to the solar PV panels, which would help inform the decision-making process.
So,
Sorry, Chair, if it's literally just an exercise of finding out some more information, then, and the applicant seems to be quite happy to go along and do that, then I don't have an issue with it procedurally and legally.
okay, then can we vote then on the amendment, please, to defer this for the applicant to have another look at it and find a more acceptable form of development? Can we, Councillor Howe?
It's just your wording you just used. It's not to find another, it's to just verify and prove that solar towers are or not viable.
Well, that's what I meant.
Yeah, I know, but it's being
Yeah.
very clear to the
Well,
public.
okay,
yeah.
you phrased it, we don't all speak the same. Right, can we take that amendment then, please? All those in favour of deferring? All those against? So that amendment falls, so we go back to the proposal. Count with, oh, abstentions. Any abstentions? Yes, I did.
Bear with me, Chair.
Yeah.
14. Yeah, lovely. That
Okay, so we go to the proposal. The proposal is to approve. All those in favour?
Sorry, Chair, I'm sorry to interject again. Are you happy now that sufficient reasons have been put forwards? Yeah, okay. Do you want to just, again, for the benefit of the committee, just read out what those reasons are? Thank you.
The adverse impact on the Grade 2 heritage, the Grade 2 listed church is outweighed by the increased viability, by the public benefits that are brought about by increasing the long-term viability of the church through the introduction of renewable energy.
Okay. Okay, so we took that vote. What's the,
So now, Chair, we've got the reasons. The vote is for one, the approval against officer recommendation for the reasons that have been put forward by Councillor Davey, seconded by Councillor Brown. So we now just need to vote as to whether or not the committee want to approve it on that basis.
Right, so the
All those in
proposal
favour?
is to approve. Can we have a show of hands, please?
1, 2, 3, 4,
9?
9.
Those against?
No?
No. Those abstaining? Yep.
Hopefully 5.
Yeah.
Then that's
So
carried, Chair.
that's carried. Thank you. Now we go to the next item, which is item 8, 260952, variation land adjacent to Cloakham Lawn and Chard Road, Axminster, pages 34 to 54. Mrs. Ormsby to present the report, please.
So this proposal is to vary a single condition, condition 21, of a wider hybrid planning permission, which was granted, which is a sort of a part outline and part full planning permission, which granted permission for up to 140 dwellings, 0.8 hectares of Class E employment land, public open space, drainage, ancillary works, and a full application for works to a football pitch and associated development along those lines. And this condition relates to that part of the permission which is for the 0.8 hectares of Class E employment land. So this is the application site. You may recall it did come to committee some time ago before the permission was granted. And this is showing the sort of the general parameters of the various uses that were approved on the site. And the pink land here is the land that is set aside for employment use. And you can see more clearly there. So that's the residential development, football pitches over here, and this is the employment land, which is, and when planning permission was granted, it was granted with this condition 21, and the key goal, what this condition is effectively saying is that no use on the employment land, so no use permitted on the site of any proposed building for retail use, which is Class EA, with either over 500 square metres of floor space individually or proposals for smaller retail units with a cumulative floor space of 500 square metres. Any application that comes forward for anything over that threshold needs to be supported by a retail impact assessment and an updated transport assessment that demonstrates to the satisfaction of the local planning authority that there would be no adverse impacts on the vitality and viability of Axminster town centre or the safety of the local highway network from such a use on the application site. The reason for this is the site itself sits outside of Axminster town centre, and there's a presumption against, ensuring that any retail developments that are effectively out of town don't adversely impact on the health and the well-being, the vitality of existing town centres. The applicant has come back, and what they're asking for is the insertion of one additional word into the condition, and you can see that highlighted. So what they are saying is that the retail impact, should such an application come forward, that the retail impact assessment and updated transport assessment should demonstrate to the satisfaction of the local planning authority that there would be no unacceptable adverse impacts on the vitality and the viability of Axminster town centre. Now, when we're looking at adverse impacts, we would in any case be looking to see whether the adverse impacts are unacceptable. Because you could look at a retail impact assessment and it might show a 1% loss of trade, for example, which technically is an adverse impact. But is it significant enough to actually be genuinely harmful, to be significant, to have any significant impact? So we would be saying, well, is that 1% loss of trade, I'm talking hypothetically, having an unacceptable adverse impact? And that's the word that is the applicants are wanting put into this condition. And that is just to give a degree of greater comfort. Obviously, they need to find, to market this land, find occupiers, developers, funders, and they will look very carefully at the wording of conditions and can be put off by anything that they may think, well, that's adding an element of uncertainty. Whilst we're satisfied that we're quite happy to put that retail impact assessment in and the revised highway impact, we want it to be assessed on reasonable grounds, the reasonable ground being that it has no unacceptable adverse impacts. So from an officer's perspective, we are very happy to add that word in. In many cases, we tend to use words like that. In this case, it wasn't used. But in terms of this meeting the tests of reasonableness, necessary to make the development acceptable, reasonable, proportionate to the development, we're satisfied that it meets those tests and would have the same ultimate element of control, which is what we're really trying to secure, that anything that comes forward we can assess to ensure that there are no unacceptable adverse impacts on Axminster Town Centre and also from a highway perspective. There's no objections from the Highway Authority on this matter. And as I said, from an officer's perspective, we're quite happy and comfortable that adding in that word will have no meaningful impact on how or on the type of development that ultimately will come forward. And if it helps to give more comfort to developers, funders, etc., so that we get that employment land coming forward, then that I think is a benefit and another reason for supporting the proposal. So this is recommended for approval. Thank you.
Yes, sorry, let me just get it. So Mr. Harrington says, I strongly object to the proposed development for a number of reasons. That the Planning Committee have overlooked the reasons unknown that will have serious consequences for the local environment. Firstly, the site is very close to the River Axe, which no doubt the runoff will put the well-being of the River Axe in peril, and raised phosphate levels and pollution from the site. Also, the area on Chard Road at Waycroft severely floods, and the extra runoff from the site will only exacerbate the situation for Waycroft residents. The River Axe next to the site is home to a family of otters, which would be affected by any disturbance. The River Axe still has a fragile ecosystem, being home to salmon, brown trout, swans, ducks, herons, and coots, which are in danger. The proposed site would mean the destruction of a large hedgerow, of the large hedgerows, which are home to much wildlife such as sparrows, blue tits, goldfinches, birds of prey, grass snakes, slow worms, rare butterflies, lizards and bats that frequent the World War II pillarbox and newts. I could go on. The area is naturally beautiful, where people regularly walk or cycle, and is overlooked by listed buildings. I attended the original planning meeting, and it was clear that none of the planning committee had ever visited the site, and based on their decision on a few photos and the promise of a training football ground for Axminster FC. In the East Devon plan, there were several preferred sites in and around Axminster that didn't encroach on the River Axe and the local fragile environment. Yet the planning committee, despite the obvious damage this proposed site would cause to the River Axe, wildlife and residents of Waycroft, gave permission. Can East Devon District Council please reconsider this ill-thought decision and look at other sites that are listed in the East Devon plan that won't encroach on and destroy the fragile ecosystem and River Axe and put further strain on local infrastructure, especially traffic and local facilities? That's the end of the statement.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Hayward, ward member. You have 5 minutes, Councillor Hayward.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. So obviously as I mentioned earlier, I am the clerk to the Town Council. The Town Council has chosen by resolution not to make a comment or make a formal representation. So I'm speaking here today as the ward member, also speaking with the agreement and backing of Councillor Jackson, who shares the views I'm about to put forwards, but also as the economy portfolio holder for Devon. So economy is my portfolio brief. And so, mindful of what Mr. Harrington has just said, that the die has been cast. Essentially, the planning committee has agreed this, and what we're considering today is just a variation. So the reason I objected is simply due to the ambiguity of that word, unacceptable. And in first most core principle, unacceptable to whom? Adverse effect to the traders of Axminster, who are struggling, and I'll come to some statistics in a short while. Anything is unacceptable to them. You know, if they have to downsize, they close, that's their business, that's their livelihood. And so just to have this throwaway word, unacceptable, that's what gives me concern. The NPPF actually has a section on this, section 7, clause 95, and the word they use is significant adverse effect, not unacceptable. And it should be noted, so as a backup to this, so I get data from East Devon and from Devon. Axminster is the second worst affected town in Devon for high street retail vacancies up to 2026. We're at 21.1%, only beaten by Ilfracombe, which has its fair share of problems, I can assure you. However, Axminster is number 1 in the league table of affected towns for persistent vacancy. You know, we have 9.5, nearly 10% of our properties are vacant. So this is my concern. My request to committee members is to consider a slight variation, is that instead of unacceptable, you put the word significant in there. That aligns this with the NPPF chapter 7, clause 95. That it is to the written satisfaction of this authority, not just the satisfaction, because that then allows someone, an officer, a councillor, a portfolio holder, to just say, it's fine, I'd like it written down. So it's in the register forever, and it can be used and be called upon. And finally, that the additional wording of that this condition is retained for the lifetime of the development. That's 3 small things. Additional wording, apologies, Chair, I'm slightly over, written satisfaction, and that this condition stays for the lifetime of the development, not it's sold and then it can be disregarded. Thank you very much indeed, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. Right, questions, members? Any questions? Councillor Davey?
Are we able to change the wording in the way that Councillor Hayward has suggested? Because we're being asked for a variation of a condition, and that's been put forward. Can we depart from that and put in our own variation of the condition when that's not what has been asked for? I'm kind of supportive of that, but I just wonder if we're actually enabled to do it.
Do you want? Would you like to comment? Who would like to comment on that?
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, we've got to consider what's before us, haven't
Yeah.
we? I don't think we can start varying the... Normally, if it's an application for approval and you wish to add some conditions to that application,
Yeah.
then obviously you can look to see what the recommended ones are, and if they're not happy with any slight tweaks to the conditions, they can appeal against it. But here we've got specific wording in relation to the proposal, so I'm not sure that we can amend that wording.
Okay.
Because this is it's a variation to a condition, so obviously we can issue planning permissions with, provided they're not pre-commencement conditions, arguably with whichever conditions we feel are reasonable and necessary to make the development acceptable. So I hear what Councillor saying. I think that arguably we could. I mean, I would prefer just quickly double check that. But I think the thing you have to bear in mind is significant. And I mean, is there any material difference between the words unacceptable and significant? In terms of they've requested the word unacceptable. Is significant materially different, or arguably is significant a higher bar than unacceptable? My interpretation would be that a significant adverse impact is actually a more permissive than the word unacceptable. Yeah. That would be my view on it.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody, Councillor Barlow?
Just a question on unacceptable. You talked about 1% earlier in your brief, whatever. So what would be acceptable? Are we talking 5%, 10%, 20%? I mean, you know, and who decides this? Is it just officers looking at it, or is it do you go to the Chamber of Commerce? Do you go to the local town council? You know, it's a very thing. I've had a business before where it was put that that at the end of the day, I could sell goods that were, so if you, the idea, I presume, is these are commercial units, small commercial units for business to do. So rather than say unacceptable, this thing, you know, it should be something ancillary, so that at the end of the day, the businesses that you set up there, their retail work can only be ancillary to their commercial business, rather than trying to work out whether it's an acceptable amount. So in other words, the retail goes in line with those commercial units. But you're now sort of saying, well, you can have up to 500 metres of retail in that place. And now we're saying that's acceptable. At the present time, with Co-op shut down in Axminster, if a big store went in there that wanted to do, the retail goods, then, you know, technically, because there isn't anything to compete with it in the town at the moment, that wouldn't be unacceptable, because but it might devastate the town, because obviously it's easy to shop there, car park, and all the rest of it. So these are the things that I can imagine Axminster would be very concerned about, and the wording is really important. At the moment, you've got it in there where it's really hard to argue it, and they would have difficulty arguing it. Whereas as soon as you put unacceptable in there, it's going to be a lot easier to put something in, which I accept is what you're trying to do, but where is the balance for the security of the town centre?
Mr. Hunter.
No, I was just going to jump in, because normally, obviously, when we've got an application before us, we can't start amending the description, and that's what, you know, threw me in, like, got me some concern about trying to amend the condition here that's effectively been put forward as the proposal. But I've just looked into Section 73 of the Town and Country Plan Act, and it just says, on such an application, the local planning authority shall consider only the question of the condition subject to which planning permission should be granted, and if they decide that planning permission should be granted subject to conditions differing from those subject to which the previous permission was granted, or that it should be granted unconditionally, they shall grant planning permission accordingly. So basically, what they seem to be saying is that we just need to consider the original application as has been put forward had these conditions attached to it. We now need to consider whether or not we are prepared to amend the original conditions or this particular one in front of you. And if you do want to amend that old condition with the proposed new worded condition, that's fine. If you want to slightly tweak it, that's within your gift to do so. But bear in mind that if you tweak it significantly, the applicant may not be happy with that because that's not what they've applied for. So then they could actually appeal against that on the basis that they've effectively been given a refusal because they've not got what they've asked for. So I think you have got some license to tweak what's before you, but not to go wild and start issuing something completely different. Hope that makes sense.
Okay.
Could I come back? to
Yes,
that?
yes.
So, Councillor Barlow, you were asking about how do we assess this. So what will happen, and what's clear in this condition is what has to happen. If an application was to come in for more than 500 square metres of retail, either a single unit or cumulatively, they would need to submit a retail impact assessment. We then go out to then that would be prepared by a specialist consultant. We would then go out and instruct a different specialist consultant to review that retail impact assessment, to review all of the premise of it, all of the background information, because it is a specialist area. As officers, we're not qualified to do that. And there tends to be a little some sort of toing and froing in terms of looking at the data and challenging, and then we would take a recommendation from the specialist company that we have, specialist consultants, as to whether or not they conclude that there would be any degree of impact, what that degree of impact is, and whether or not on that basis they think it would be contrary to our policies, which seek to protect the vitality and viability of town centres. So that's the process that is undertaken when we're looking for large. I mean, it's in our policies that we have to do that for out-of-town applications in any event. This is pulling it through and making it clear within this condition.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just come back on that, but at what point is it acceptable? I mean, at the moment, that's what you have to do, and it's very clear. Can't be adverse. Now you're saying unacceptable. So what is acceptable? What percentage will be acceptable?
There isn't a set percentage, and this is why we use specialist consultants to advise, because it depends on the state of the town centre to start with, in terms of how fragile it is, as to the extent of change that a centre may be able to absorb or not absorb. So there is, it's not possible to say that over 5% it's unacceptable, under 4% it is. It's every case, every town centre, every impact is looked at in its own, on its own merits, on its own circumstances.
Right, Councillor Heath.
Thank you, Chair. Could we just consider not adding in significant and or unacceptable?
Well, that's what we're here to do today, to decide whether or not to agree to the change. So yes, members could decide not to take that change. I think we have to bear in mind that we do want to see development coming forward on this site. It's an employment allocation, and that giving the development industry, as we all know, there's a lot of pressures nowadays. It isn't just about going ahead of building. You need to have you need to get funders, you need to get occupiers, etc. Having unduly restrictive conditions can prevent development coming forward, which might mean that it might have knock-on effects for other parts of the scheme that might be coming forward for non-retail uses, because a site like this is may well be built out by a single developer, etc. And then the officer view is putting in that word unacceptable is going to have no real impact on how any retail impact assessment is assessed, because we would be having to assess, is that impact unacceptable? If it isn't unacceptable, there would be no grounds to say, we're going to refuse you to go ahead with that retail project because of the impacts on Axminster town centre. It would be wholly unreasonable to do that. The impact has to be unacceptable for us to refuse it in the future. So it would be, I think, quite unreasonable to refuse this. I think if they went and appealed that condition, that if today members refused this application and the condition remained as it currently is, obviously they then have the opportunity to appeal that condition, and I think their chance of success is high. I think it would be unreasonable for us not to accept that additional wording.
Councillor Barlow.
But you don't believe then that it makes any difference? Because you're saying you're going to look at it exactly the same. So it makes no difference, but we've got to change it even though it makes no difference. And again, if it makes no difference, why are they asking for this? And it isn't 500 square metres on an area that size quite a lot of retail? Do we want retail there or not? That is the question, really, isn't it?
Well, that was a consideration when we were granting the outline permission. So members have accepted that up to 500 square metres could be retail without the need for any further assessment. If it is going to be retail over 500 metres, that issue has been agreed and accepted in that grant. What the condition is just talking about of if an application comes forward, it needs this retail impact assessment to assess whether there are, currently worded, adverse impacts. So when I'm saying that it won't make ultimately any difference, it won't make any ultimate difference at the planning stage, but the wording is really important for people who are investors, people, funders, who like much greater clarity and uncertainty, and themselves are not necessarily au fait of quite how the planning system works. So I, as an officer, can say that whether it says unacceptable in that is likely to make little, not going to make any ultimate impact. But for those people outside of the planning system who are looking to buy a site, invest in a site, could be put off by the current wording. So that's where it makes a difference, and that's why they are proposing the change in the wording.
If you want more than 500 metres of retail.
Right, any more
Yes.
questions, members? Right, we're going to debate then. Who'd like to start? Councillor Barlow.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I've looked at this, and I was wary of changing things. Of why are they doing that at this stage? If you look at the area that you've allocated for employment, 500 square metres. If you want a commercial area for commercial small units, which was the idea in the first place when it was sold to us, then at the end of the day, yes, you need some ancillary retail use. But if you wanted to put a big supermarket up there, then at the end of the day, you don't want that on there, and you want to remove it. I just think that we need to be very, very careful about changing this. And if the officers don't think it makes a lot of difference, I wonder why they're not just telling that to the people and saying, well, we're not going to bother. They obviously think it makes a big difference. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gone to this expense and hassle to change it. So I have concerns, but I will listen to what others say.
I think Mrs. Ormsby's already answered that in that it would encourage people to invest, businesses to invest. Anybody else? Councillor Davey.
I never thought we'd be sitting here debating one word, but words are significant, or is that the right word? I do understand the nervousness of retailers and so on in Axminster, which, as we heard from Councillor Hayward, is already struggling at the prospect of changing this. But my feeling is it actually doesn't make a huge amount of difference. As Mrs. Ormsby has clearly explained, if an application came in and it was assessed that the retail assessment was fairly negligible or fairly minor, then I think for us to refuse it, because we said, but there is adverse impact, it would go to appeal and an inspector would say, well, that's ridiculous, and allow it. So I really don't feel that there is any reason to object to the wording as written. So I am happy that this word can go in, because if it's not unacceptable, then we struggle to refuse it anyway.
So that wasn't a question, we're into debate.
Sorry, yes,
Yeah.
yes, Chair.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, then can I ask for a proposal, please? Councillor Gazzard.
Yeah, move the recommendation as on the
Thank
paper.
you.
So.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Davey. Nothing to add? Can we take the vote on that then? All those in support of the recommendation, raise your hands, please.
Are you scratching your nose, Councillor? No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh.
Those against? Abstentions? Thank you, then that is carried. Thank you. Agenda item 10, planning application 20. Oh, yes. Would you like a comfort break? Yeah?
I think they need to rest their arms for a minute, don't they? And then they can rise them a bit higher next time. It's a bit difficult, members. Come on now, go like this, and then we know. Thank you.
That's not your drinking on. Okay, 10 minutes back at about just gone 22, okay?
What bloody hell is that? Is that a vote, or are you scratching your ear?
Eileen, could you turn your microphone on, please?
We all back? Yeah. Resume then. Item 10. Planning application 252529, full application, land adjacent Grove Cottage, Shoot Crib House, pages 77 to 93. Development Manager, Mrs. Ormsby, will present the report. Thank you.
Right, so this is a full planning application for the construction of a dwelling within the existing walls of a ruined building with access and associated works. And members may recall this application site because it came to committee last year and was refused. So the site is at Shoot, which is north of Collerton, west of Axminster. It's a small settlement with a church and a primary school and a number of significant listed buildings. And they're shown here. So you have Grade 1 Shoot Gate House, which is in here. You have the Grade 2 Star St Michael's Church, Grade 2 War Memorial, Barn and Stables, Beagles Row and the Forge. So as you can see in here, the various listed buildings. So quite a cluster of some highly graded listed buildings. This shows the application site, the blue line being land within the ownership of the site. And you can see that the site occupies a southern portion of the field at the centre of the settlement. The access track is already an established track leading to a ruined building, which is over here. And just by way of reminder of the scheme that was refused, it was refused planning permission and dismissed at appeal in January. The appeal was determined in January this year. And this is the footprint of the building. So this is the access track and sort of parking area. And that's the footprint of the building from the refused scheme. And that is the elevations of the refused scheme. So building a dwelling within the walls of an existing ruined building. And again, by way of reminder, the reasons for that refusal was that it is not a conversion and therefore it has no support from policy D8. So therefore it's considered purely against strategy 7, development in the countryside, and it doesn't meet any of the sort of exception criteria for development in the countryside. It's an unsustainable location with limited access to public transport. The adverse impact on the setting of the Grade 1 listed Shoot Gatehouse and adverse impact on the national landscape, with the inspector concluding that a new dwelling in this area with the associated domestic activity and infrastructure into an undeveloped and tranquil part of the landscape would be unacceptable. So the appeal was dismissed with the inspector agreeing with all of the grounds for refusal. So we now have a revised proposal, and you can see the footprint is largely the same for the new building. Same access track coming in, showing parking area up to the north, and gardens surrounding the dwelling, and hedgerow planting indicated along the northern side of the access way. This is the scheme. So the main difference between this scheme and the proposed scheme is this is now a single-storey development with, you'll recall, the previous scheme had a pitched roof on the top. So this is now a flat roof set within the walls. In the same way, this is a building within the ruins, so it is a new build development rather than a conversion. And windows all set in this southwest elevation. you can see here the proposed layout. So proposing effectively a 2-bedroom dwelling with living area on this element here. And with a sedum type roof, flat roof on the building. And that's just showing a sort of a 3D image of the proposed dwelling. These are some views. So that's looking in from the road. You can see into the ruined walls here. This is the access way. So you drive around to the dwelling there. This is another view just standing in the access way to the ruins where the new dwelling would be built within. Another view of the ruins. And that's the existing access way. And this is the line where it's proposed to put in some hedgerow along the fenceway. This is inside the site, looking at the exterior of the ruined walls that are there. And this is the interior. So this is inside here is where the new dwelling would be built. And you can see Grove Cottage visible in the distance. And this is looking from the edge of the former building towards the site access with Chute Gatehouse, the Grade 1 Chute Gatehouse, just visible through the trees. And then Beagles Row, which is Grade 2 listed, visible on the left. And this is Chute Gatehouse, so Grade 1 listed, so the highest category of listed buildings. And obviously detail about the historic significance of that building set out in the officer report. And this was a photograph taken in the summertime last year, showing the proximity of the site, which is down here, to the Grade 1 listed Chute Gatehouse. And that, just by way of comparison, is a view taken in 2021 when the hedgerows were kept a bit lower. Just indicating that obviously you can't necessarily rely on hedgerows remaining at the same level of screening and height as they may be at a particular time. So the key issues here is looking at how this scheme, I suppose, differs from the previous scheme in ways that might overcome the previous reasons for refusal. So in this context, this is a new dwelling in the open countryside. There is no support from any policy within the local plan or within the neighbourhood plan for new dwellings in the countryside unless they are of, the only potential criteria in this instance would be if it was of outstanding architectural design or innovation, which it isn't. And the inspector, when he considered the previous scheme, acknowledged that the architecture was of high quality, but it wasn't in any way outstanding, so gained no support from either the NPPF or Strategy 7 of the local plan. It remains to be, it's an unsustainable location, and as acknowledged by the planning inspector, there is limited public transport available and limited access to local services, so there would be high reliance on the private car, so contrary to Strategy 5B and TC2 of the local plan. And that remains the same as for the previous scheme. And then the heritage harms. So Historic England maintain their concerns and objection to this scheme, notwithstanding the fact that it has, and to be acknowledged, it is that the bulk of the scheme is notably reduced. Removing that top floor it does mean it sits much more, it isn't as visually prominent as the scheme previously. But I think the important aspects that the inspector was commenting on when he was assessing the impact, both on the national landscape but also on heritage, was that effectively it's not just the building itself, but the cars, the comings and goings, the activity, the domestic paraphernalia that inevitably surrounds any residential property. and he comments in his decision that he's looking at the adverse impact of the proposal would be compounded by residential activity taking place within the appeal site. This includes the comings and goings of domestic motor vehicles and deliveries, light spill, and the inevitable domestic paraphernalia that would follow. This would markedly change the character and appearance of the appeal site and contrast sharply with the surrounding open countryside. The proposal would disrupt the setting of the gatehouse. And then he goes on to say that if the proposed development was permitted, it would also be difficult for the planning authority to resist future pressure for curtilage buildings and structures. These would be likely to exacerbate the harmful change to the setting of an important designated heritage asset. The introduction of residential development into this part of the setting of the gatehouse would be incongruous and distract from the appreciation and understanding of a building that has been identified as being of exceptional interest. And he concludes that the harm he's identified weighs heavily against granting planning permission. So that's the assessment of heritage harm. And that's where the inspector is looking not just at the built form, but the actual principle of having a residential use on this site. And then the harm on the national landscape. Again, the building is of a smaller scale. But when the inspector is considering the impact on the national landscape, again, it isn't just the built form. He also concludes that it's about the impact on the rural character, the tranquility of this part of the national landscape, which would all be disrupted by having residential use and all of the activity and change that goes along with it. Overall, having regard to those comments, the officer view is that in the planning balance, there is still significant harms arising from this proposal, notwithstanding the way in which it's been amended. The benefits that have come forward are the provision of a single dwelling at a time when we can't deliver, when we don't have a 5-year housing land supply. However, because of the identified significant heritage harms, the tilted balance would not apply in considering this application. Benefits are that, yes, it could help to sustain local services and their economic benefits from construction. But the officer recommendation in this instance remains that of refusal for the same grounds as the previous application, notwithstanding the change in design, that it is contrary to the development plan, it's contrary to the provisions of the NPPF, and in the absence of the fact that we cannot apply the tilted balance in this instance, there are no material considerations that would justify approving this development as contrary to the provisions of the development plan. So this is recommended for refusal. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. We're grateful for the ward members' support and would agree that the proposal would reuse the remnants of the building in a way that is sympathetic with its surroundings to ensure that the structure's future sustainability, repair and protection. The building is in a ruinous state and only part of it exists, effectively its stone walls. Therefore, any proposed conversion, even to reinstate an agricultural use, would likely be contrary to Policy D8 of the local plan, which requires rural buildings to be structurally sound and capable of conversion without substantial rebuilding. However, without a viable long-term use, what's left of the building will continue to deteriorate until it collapses and its historic significance lost permanently. The submitted scheme is a revised proposal following the previous refusal and is an innovative design solution that would create an architecturally designed dwelling. The proposal would have a flat green roof that would be concealed within the existing ruinous heritage walls, meaning that it would be virtually unseen from vantage points in the surrounding landscape. It's worth noting that you can't see the building from the gatehouse itself. Paragraph 139 of the National Planning Policy Framework states that significant weight should be given to outstanding or innovative designs which promote high levels of sustainability or help to raise the standard of design more generally in an area, so long as they fit in with the overall form and layout of their surroundings. The committee report contends that the development would introduce residential activity, domestic paraphernalia and lighting into an undeveloped rural landscape. However, the application site is situated within Shute, an existing village with numerous dwellings, a church and a primary school. While the countryside around Shute may be undeveloped, the same cannot be said for the village itself. Further, the setting of the gatehouse is already characterised by residential activity. There are dwellings to the west of the gatehouse which already form part of its setting and are closer than the application site. Last month, members of this committee recommended approval of a similar application for the reinstatement and reuse of a derelict building in Stockland. Members considered that proposal met the requirements of paragraph 83 of the NPPF, which supports sustainable growth and development in rural areas. Members acknowledged the harms identified in the report, including the site's unsustainable location, but concluded that these harms were outweighed by the benefits of the scheme. Further, and unlike the Stockland proposal, which itself was in the setting of a Grade 2 star listed building, the Stockland Church, the remains at Shute are a non-designated heritage asset, which has been proved by a heritage assessment, which provides additional heritage justification. We would therefore respectfully request that members form a similar view to the proposal at Stockland and approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you. That was spot on time. Down to the second. Thank you for that. Councillor Ian Chubb.
Hello again. Don't come for ages and then get two on the same day. Right. Shute and Whitford is one of the largest villages I've got. It's actually Shute, Whitford and Umbourne, and it covers from Stockland Hill by the aerial down to Musbury, because Whitford goes right the way down to Musbury. So it's quite a large settlement. This site is actually more in the middle of anywhere, because you've got the primary school up the road, you've got the church just up the road, and you've got the Lime Bay Cider Company, etc., just down the way as well. So it is quite central. The effect of this building won't be as great as the council houses that were built right next to the Shute Gatehouse. So this is actually a site that's low right the way down off the road. You've got a job to see it if you were driving around there. Hopefully you've driven that way in the past and you've gone to Lime Bay Cider Company. But anyway, I digress there. I feel it's a very good use of an old building, which the locals call the cheese barn. So I don't know if it was actually used to store cheese, but you wouldn't be able to do a lot with it at the moment because it is just 3 walls. And I feel it's a good use of this building, which the applicant is obviously going to make good and keep the asset for future generations. The previous application was a balanced decision last time, and it was chosen by the chairman to refuse it, but they've come back with a lower scheme, a nice roof, sedum roof, which I like the look of. It's basically sympathetic with surroundings, and as I say, if you have been there and looked down, you'll know it's not going to stand out. So it's not a new building in the countryside, it's the reuse of a former building, which is coming into the 21st century, let's say. But anyway, I fully support this application, and I'm sure it's up to you to make your decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chubb. Right, members' questions? No questions? Right, we move into debate then. Councillor Davey.
Gosh, I'm quick off the mark.
Yeah,
today,
come on.
aren't you? Okay. I feel that this application, it doesn't answer any of the reasons for refusal, which have been upheld at appeal, and I therefore see no reason to do anything other than refuse it again.
Right, Councillor Howe.
it is the sustainability of the location, which was accepted by the inspector, the harm to the heritage assets. Yes, I can kind of see, and I understand that the building has been lowered and its impact would be less. But the inspector also mentioned domestic comings and goings, domestic paraphernalia around the building. So I don't feel that it has really answered the crucial aspects of the reasons for refusal, and I think it should still be refused.
Thank you. Councillor Howe?
Was that a proposal?
Yes, I'll take that as a
Yeah,
proposal.
I'll leave it to stand there, but I'm happy to hear others.
I'm happy to second that proposal, actually.
Well, well, do you wish to make that a
Do you want to?
proposal? Yes, he does.
This time you're right, Ollie. It's just, in a lot of ways, it's a shame, because if this development had come first, I think they stood a chance of getting it. But with the line in the sand drawn by the planning inspector, we would be foolish not to listen to that, and that is the lines they have to get over. It's a lovely design. I'd love that myself personally, but it doesn't qualify. It's the wrong area for the wrong things, and quite rightly, we need to support the inspectors in these cases. Thank you.
All right. Councillor Barlow?
I was going to ask really basically about the wall. I mean, the only benefit I see of this is protecting the building that's already there. And is that important, as it seems to be, to the Grade 1 listed building? But I also take Councillor Howe's point that this has been to appeal. They've lost it on appeal. What they should have done is not appealed it. They should have just put this back in, answering our questions, and then, quite rightly, we would have had a lot more leeway to argue that. But with the rules that have been laid down by the appeal, I think that I would have difficulty in going against someone that is supposed to be the law on this.
Thank you. Right, it's been proposed and seconded.
No, I'd just like to say something.
Oh, Councillor Hunt.
Thank you. My father always used to call the Shoot Road the most beautiful road to drive along in East Devon, and I actually agree that the views along there are really fantastic, and it's a beautiful area. And I'd just like to agree with the comments that this is a wrong development in that area.
Thank you.
And equally, that since it's been appealed, I don't see any grounds that have changed. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been proposed, seconded. All those in support? Those against? Abstentions? Thank you, that's carried. Thank you, and we go on to the last application. Item 11, planning application 261048, full application, 6 Primley Road, Sidmouth, pages 94 to 100. Councillor Bailey, what?
I feel I ought to declare an interest because the wife of the applicant is my wife's niece. So that makes me loosely family.
Okay, Damien.
So I take Damien's advice on that. Thank you.
So, wait a minute then.
Yeah.
Let's just clear that again. Sorry. So
His
the
wife's
applicant
niece.
is your wife's
The applicant's wife.
Niece.
My wife's niece.
So it's either a brother's or sister's child,
Well, it's
is it?
his niece,
Right,
but not
okay.
a blood niece.
So it's a
his
relative,
niece.
for a start off.
He's her uncle.
Yeah. So basically, is it going to affect their finances or well-being? Well, is it their application? Yes, sorry. So it will directly relate to their finances or well-being. Right. So you've got a directly relates NRI then. So you may speak as a member of the public, but you must leave the room during the discussion and the vote. Okay, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So is it Charlie McLaughlin's?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
We
So, I mean, again, so if you only really need to declare an interest if it's particularly close to you and is a close associate. So, for instance, if he was a family member or he was a good friend and you went out with him on a regular basis, you went round to each other's houses, the fact that you work with him and I work with him, for instance, Wendy, is a colleague. He doesn't, and again, members will all know who John McCulloch is, but they may not be closely associated to him. So I think, as I say, with yourself, Councillor, you need to declare that directly relates NRI, and when we've now moved into debate, you do need to leave. So if there's anything you want to say, I'd say it now, and then you may as well leave for the rest of the application. Thank you. And then there is the exciting training that's coming after this, so do come back for that. Thank you.
Right, so I will continue on with the presentation,
Yep.
which is for the construction of a rear raised terrace with timber and glazed balustrading. And the reason this has come to committee is that the applicant is an employee of this council, just for full transparency, a planning officer at East Devon Council, and there is an objection to the application. This is the application site. It is a semi-detached house in a residential area of Sidmouth. And this shows the site plan and what is proposed. So it's proposed to build a raised terrace off the back of the property. At the moment, there are patio doors and steps that lead down to the garden. The intention is to create a sort of a usable raised decking area that comes straight off those patio doors. The plan indicates a 1.8 metre fence along the boundary here and a 2.1 metre fence along this boundary. Those are existing fences and they are not being changed. The comments from the town council were that they didn't object to the terrace, but they had concerns about the fencing because they had misunderstood the plans and thought the fences were new, but they're not. The fences are not changing. Here you see the existing and proposed. So this is the existing rear, so the patio doors with the steps coming down, and the proposal is to add this raised terrace. So the terrace itself will be 55 centimetres above the existing ground level, and with on top of it, a metre-high balustrade will be surrounding the terrace area. And you can see it here. And there's an objection from the neighbour. They've objected on grounds of loss of daylight, overlooking the sort of the use, in fact, intensified use of that part of the garden and development along a shared boundary. This shows the proposal in plan form, so you can see the extent of the raised decking here. And this shows photographs. So these are photographs looking down the garden of the application site. Then this is looking across to number 5, and this is stood at garden level. So that's what you would see there. And this is taken from the top of the steps. So this is effectively taken from the level that the deck would be at. And as you can see, with the intervening fence, there won't be any significant overlooking to the neighbour. Because the deck itself is set 3 metres in from the boundary, if it was right on the boundary raised up, then obviously there's more potential for overlooking. Because it's set in, then the line of sight is interrupted by the fence. And this is looking the other way from those steps across to number 7, and similarly the distance from the boundary and the fence prevents any notable overlooking of the neighbour. So in this instance, it's considered that there will be no significant adverse impacts on neighbour amenity, and obviously marginal benefits, what are benefits limited solely, not public benefits, benefits to the occupiers in terms of increased amenity. So this is recommended for approval with conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions? It's pretty straightforward, I think. No question? Yeah,
Well, as a ward member, I'm happy to move it with the
yeah,
recommendation.
thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Howe? Thank you. Don't wish to comment. Okay, can we take a vote on that? All those in support? Abstain? Yeah, one abstention, none against, are there? No. And that is carried. Right, that brings us to the end of the applications. Now we have a training session.